Nearly 10,000 feet beneath the Coral Sea, a massive warship lies eerily intact, her name still visible after 76 years. Lexington was a technological marvel, able to power a city and outrun her enemies. But on May 8, 1942, an invisible flaw, hidden within her cutting-edge design, doomed her, leaving 216 men entombed. Before the first torpedo struck, the seeds of disaster were already sown. How could America's most advanced carrier become a silent tomb in a single afternoon? The answer begins with her very first mission. Work began on the hull of a new battlecruiser at the Four River Shipyard in Quincy, Massachusetts, on January 8, 1921. Known as CC-1, the ship was designed to be fast and heavily armed, a direct response to the naval arms race of the early 20th century. By the start of 1922, only about a quarter of the hull was complete when the Washington Naval Treaty intervened. The treaty, aimed at curbing the escalation of capital ship construction, forced a halt to the project. Instead of scrapping the unfinished vessel, the Navy received permission to convert her into an aircraft carrier, a decision that would shape the future of American naval aviation. The redesign was ambitious. The ship was redesignated CV-2, and her conversion into a fleet carrier began in earnest. The new plans called for a vessel 888 feet long, displacing over 43,000 tons at full load. She was equipped with a turbo-electric propulsion system powered by 16 boilers, driving 4 massive electric motors. On sea trials, this machinery pushed the ship to an impressive 34.5 knots, making her one of the fastest capital ships afloat. The flight deck stretched nearly the full length of the hull, with space for 78 aircraft and a 2-level hangar beneath. Armament was a hybrid: 12 5-inch anti-aircraft guns for defense, plus 4 8-inch guns mounted in turrets, a rare feature for a carrier and unique among American ships of her class. Launched on October 3, 1925, and commissioned on December 14, 1927, the newly christened USS Lexington embodied both the legacy of battleship design and the promise of air power. Her sheer size and complex machinery would soon reveal both strengths and hidden vulnerabilities. In December 1929, a record drought plunged Tacoma, Washington, into darkness. Hydroelectric reservoirs ran dry, and the city's power plants fell silent. The Navy answered with an unusual solution. USS Lexington, anchored at Baker Dock, became a floating power station. For 30 days, her turbo-electric plant delivered 4.5 million kilowatt-hours to Tacoma's grid, enough to keep factories humming and homes lit until the rains returned. Newspapers hailed the carrier as a savior, and the engineering crew took pride in running the ship's generators nearly around the clock. The heart of this feat was Lexington's turbo-electric system. 16 boilers produced steam that spun turbines, which in turn powered massive generators. Electricity coursed through the ship, not just to drive her 4 propellers, but to supply every system on board. This included the pumps and trunk lines that fed aviation fuel to flight operations, an intricate network stretching for miles beneath the decks. That same design, so effective in peacetime, would reveal a hidden risk in war. The fuel trunk lines essential for keeping aircraft flying also posed a silent threat. If damaged and not fully drained, they could trap gasoline vapors deep within the ship. In an emergency, with pumps disabled or compartments flooded, vapors could accumulate out of sight, waiting for a single spark. The engineering marvel that powered a city would later become a point of vulnerability, setting the stage for the events that followed in the Coral Sea. By the spring of 1942, the Pacific War had reached a crossroads. Japanese forces pushed relentlessly toward Australia, making Port Moresby their next target. If they succeeded, the entire region would be within striking distance. Admiral Nimitz responded by sending Task Force 17, built around the carriers Lexington and Yorktown, into the Coral Sea. Their mission was clear: stop the Japanese advance, protect Australia, and keep vital sea lanes open. On May 7th, American pilots found the Japanese light carrier Shoho. Bombs and torpedoes rained down, sending her to the bottom. The victory was swift and total. Over the radio, Lieutenant Commander Robert Dixon sent the words that electrified the fleet: "Scratch one flat top." For the first time in the Pacific War, a Japanese carrier had been sunk by United States naval air power. Morale soared, but the threat was far from over. Shokaku and Zuikaku, two of Japan's main fleet carriers, still prowled the waters. Their air groups remained intact, and their next strike could tip the balance. Orders from command left no room for rest. Both Lexington and Yorktown had to keep their decks active, launching and recovering aircraft, scouting for enemy movements, and preparing for another attack at any moment. The pressure on the crews was relentless. Every man understood that the fate of Port Moresby, and perhaps Australia itself, rested on their shoulders. Lexington's position was exposed, her decks crowded with aircraft, and her systems running at full stretch. The sense of urgency was unmistakable. The battle for the Coral Sea was not finished. At 9:11 that morning, Lexington's CXAM-1 radar picked up a formation of 69 Japanese aircraft closing fast from the northwest. Within minutes, Captain Frederick Sherman sounded general quarters. The ship's engines pushed her to 25 knots, every system straining for maximum readiness. On the flight deck, crew scrambled to launch fighters and clear the way for returning bombers. The tension was electric. Lexington and Yorktown's air groups had just struck Shoho, but now the full weight of Shokaku and Zuikaku's strike force was inbound. At 11:20, the first torpedoes hit. Two Type 91 torpedoes slammed into the port side near the forward aviation fuel tanks. Almost simultaneously, three 242-kilogram bombs punched through the flight deck, exploding in hangar and crew spaces. Fires erupted, compartments flooded. The ship took a dangerous port list, and for a moment, it looked as if the worst had come. Damage control teams moved with practiced urgency, sealing off flooded areas, fighting fires with foam and carbon dioxide, and working to restore water pressure for hoses. Engineering logs from that hour record frantic efforts to keep the turboelectric plant running and maintain electrical power to pumps and communications. By noon, the crew had managed to correct the list. Flooding was contained, and the fires, though not fully out, were under control. The Lexington's engines still answered the helm. She resumed 25 knots, and limited flight operations continued. Captain Sherman, standing on the bridge, believed the ship could be saved. From the outside, Lady Lex appeared battered but stable, pressing on through the haze and smoke. Yet deep below, in the network of fuel trunk lines running through the ship's heart, a silent danger was building, unseen and unresolved. At 12:47 in the afternoon, a sudden explosion tore through the motor generator room. Gasoline vapors pooled unseen in the ship's fuel trunk lines had found a spark. The blast wiped out an entire damage control party in an instant and ruptured fresh fuel lines, feeding new fires into the heart of the carrier. Less than 2 hours later, at 2:45 in the afternoon, a second, even larger explosion rocked the hangar deck, sending debris and flames through compartments crowded with equipment and ammunition. By 3:25 in the afternoon, ammunition began cooking off, each detonation scattering fragments and smoke through the ship's interior. The chain of blasts left entire sections gutted and made firefighting impossible. Crew who had fought to save their ship now faced an unstoppable sequence of destruction, the outcome no longer in human hands. At 5:07 p.m., Captain Frederick Sherman gave the order to abandon ship. The decks were blistered by fire, compartments filled with smoke, yet the evacuation moved with discipline. More than 2,700 men climbed down lines or leapt into the sea, passing through walls of heat and debris. Destroyers and cruisers closed in, pulling survivors from oil-slicked water. Aboard Lexington, the last officers swept the decks one final time. 23 minutes later, the carrier's torpedo warheads detonated in a thunderous blast, sending a mushroom cloud high above the Coral Sea. Flames danced along the water as the sun slipped lower. At 7:15 p.m., USS Phelps fired 5 torpedoes into the burning hulk. 2 struck home. By 7:56 p.m., Lady Lex disappeared beneath the waves. Of the nearly 3,000 crew, 2,770 survived. 216 did not. Their ship rests where she fell, a silent monument to sacrifice and resolve. Today, Lexington rests nearly 2 miles down, her hull, aircraft, and 216 souls sealed in darkness. As technology unlocks forgotten depths, her story warns us. Even the most advanced designs can hide fatal flaws. In every innovation, memory and vigilance remain our truest safeguards. Share your thoughts below.